This is Malcolm341. In today's video, we're going to look at how to render vertex colors in Arnold. Vert colors are super powerful, so let's get into it. The time has finally come. I have been waiting 18 years to render vertex colors inside of Maya. Maya software can't do it as far as I know, and when we used to have Mental Ray in Maya, which is the worst rendering software I've ever used, I couldn't figure out how to do it. Maybe it's not possible. If it is possible, it was incredibly cryptic, and no one on the internet had a tutorial for it. So now that we have Arnold inside of Maya, we can all do this. It's still kind of cryptic, but I'm going to show you how it's done. Okay, so first we need to actually have some vert colors on our object. So I'm just going to go up into Mesh Display, and then I'm going to go to the Apply Color tool, and I'm going to open the options box. With this tool, basically what you can do is you can just select some verts and apply a color to them with the slider bar here. Replace whatever. There's a bunch of other options in them, but for this tutorial, we'll just put some basic colors on it. So the first thing that you want to do is you actually want to make sure that the color is white, and we're just going to flood fill, so you hit apply. And the reason that we're going to do that is because when you go to render these, if the default was gray or whatever, gray is basically no vertex color. And so when I was first testing this, I was like, oh, it's not working. And that's because I accidentally didn't have white as my base color. So make sure you assign white first. And then from there, we can apply some other colors. It doesn't matter because whatever, this is just for a test or whatever. So I'm just going to select some stuff here and let's apply some red. Sure, good enough. And then I'm going to select some stuff here. Let's go like here, let's say, and we'll do, sure, whatever, green, doesn't matter. Hit apply. Okay, so we've got some colors on there. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a shader inside of Arnold that is going to take our base material, which will be like the standard shader, which is just going to be gray or whatever color we assign to it. And then it's going to multiply these vertex colors on top of that. So tint everything below that layer with whatever color we have in the vert. All right, next up, I'm going to open up the hypershade by clicking this weird little blue eyeball. And then I'm going to click here and I'm going to press Tab. And I'm going to search for standard. Is it standard? Standard surface. That's what we should be using in Maya 2020. That's the built-in shader that is simplified to work with Arnold. Less complex than the AI standard or whatever it used to be called. So we've got our standard surface and whatever. I'm just going to put the weight up to 1. The color is white, which actually looks kind of gray or whatever. And you're going to notice I'm going to apply this to my object here. Assign material by right hold clicking, you're going to see the vert colors disappear. And that's because the standard shader, as far as I know, it doesn't display textures or vert colors or anything. It's just kind of like a placeholder, which is super annoying. I don't know why they would implement like a better shader that doesn't even give you rudimentary colors in the viewport. But just so you know, it's going to look wonky in the viewport, but when we render it in Arnold, it will look correct. And I'm just going to close the hypershade for now. We're going to come back to this and build the shader in a minute, but we have to do some other stuff first. So close that guy down, and then I'm going to go up into Mesh Display again, and we are looking for the color set editor. I'm going to open that up, and here you're going to see this funky name, and that's the name of the color set that holds the vert color that we applied to the object. And I'm just going to rename this only so it's easier for me to remember. You don't have to rename it, but you'll see in a minute we're going to need the name. So I'm just going to call this YouTube, and there we go. There's our color set, whatever. Close this down. Okay, next up, I'm going to select my object and press Control-A on the keyboard to open the attribute editor. And then I'm going to come down to the Arnold section, and we need to turn on export vertex colors. If you don't turn this on for the meshes that have vertex colors, you obviously won't be able to render them in Arnold. So make sure that guy is turned on. Close this down. Okay, next let's set up some basic Arnold render settings here so we can see what we're doing. So let's go to the renderer and we'll click on Arnold, and then we'll click on the little crop box. I'm just going to move this over to the side here, and sure, just drag this guy out, drag this guy out, and then I'm going to click play to turn on the IPR render, and we're going to get nothing because I don't have a light in the scene. So next I'm going to go to create and go to lights, and we'll just do a directional light. Okay, I can't see my light, so I'm going to scale it up so I can see what I'm doing. And sure, whatever. I don't really care. We just want to be able to see what's going on in the view. So as you can see right away, we've got our Arnold shader and I don't see the vert colors. So now we have to do a little bit of material hookups to be able to render these things. Okay, and this is going to be really disgusting because I'm going to have the hypershade open big enough for everyone to see, but it's also going to take up like too much of the screen. So it's going to be kind of brutal here. So open the hypershade again. And if you're familiar at all with the hypershade, you're going to know that all of the Arnold stuff can be found here by clicking on Arnold and then expanding these subgroups or whatever. So we're going to go into the utilities stuff here. And then if you click on math, for example, see there's all of these things. So there's a ton of them. So I'm going to be using the search to find stuff because I already know what it's named. So what I want to do is I want to press tab. And then I want to search for, what is it? AI user data color. Perfect. Hit enter. Okay, we got that. So this is the thing that lets you use the Vertex colors. So if you actually go into here, you'll see that there's an attribute setting here. What you need to plug into here is the name of your Vertex color set. And we named our Vertex color set in the earlier step to be YouTube. That's why I renamed it, just so it was easier to remember. Okay, and next up, we're going to create a multiply node. So again, press tab and do AI multiply. Boom, there we go. This Arnold thing, I have to say, is really awesome. The material workflow, the shader graph or whatever, it's really similar to Unreal. So if you've ever used Unreal and you kind of know what you're doing in there a little bit, it's going to be so familiar to create shader networks in here, or vice versa. So this isn't wasted work. If you learn something like on the Maya side, it kind of has all the same rules and stuff. So like you would do a multiply in Unreal and it would like plug into the base color or whatever. It's the same thing here. So it's super cool. Okay, so basically what the multiply node does is it takes two inputs and then it has an out color from that. So it's going to be like number 1 multiplied by number 2 multiplied on top of the base color. So our base color being the gray color over here and some color data coming from our vert colors. So we want to take out color. And we'll just put it into input 1. And I'm going to click on this node. And so you can say input 1 here is fed by this. So that's our vert color. Input 2 is white. So it's nothing because it's a multiply. So white is transparent. And then we're going to take the out color of that, which is going to multiply that onto our base color. And boom, you can see as I hooked it up there, what's awesome about the IPR is it updates in real time. So you can see there's our vert colors rendered inside of Arnold. If yours don't show up for some reason, I found almost all the time in Arnold, this IPR won't update if you're like fiddling with stuff. So go into render and say update full scene if you've set everything up and it's just not working. Always click that. When in doubt, render, update full scene. So that's awesome. Like I said, I've been waiting 18 years to have this feature in Maya, and it's so easy. You can just build your own shader now and do whatever you want. In the ancient times, we used to actually have to light scenes with Vertex colors. This was an awful system, terrible, like hand coloring each vertex to apply lighting to it. This is long before the days of global illumination or even light maps in video games. And so this was really helpful. Like when we used to have to do marketing shots, it would be like, sorry, we can't render the lighting. Let's take screenshots of the viewport. It's terrible. Now, it's not very useful anymore to have the colors be applied as a color. I mean, you can use this if your game or whatever uses vert colors for AO or something like that. You can render that stuff right here in the viewport. But what is super powerful about Vertex colors and what is commonly used in most games, including the last game that I worked on, is we would use the vert colors to actually mask between textures. So you would do like a blend shader in Unreal and you would paint the RGB, and each different color would be like a different material that you could blend in on top. So like moss on rocks, or snow on rocks or whatever, grime on concrete or whatever, dirty buildings, broken bricks. So what's cool is you can build those shaders right here inside of Arnold. And we're going to take a quick look at that just before we finish the video up. So first, I'm actually going to go back into the mesh display, apply color options, and I'm just going to flood fill this with white just to reset it. Oops, I have to have it selected. Flood fill with white. Okay, so I did the flood fill with white and nothing happened, and I bet you that's because I have to use my old friend here, update full scene. Yep, there you go. So when in doubt, update full scene. Just to simplify stuff, we'll just work with one color for now. So I'll put some red here. Red, apply, same thing. There you go, update full scene. Boom, there's our red. Okay, close this guy out. All right, and next up, we need to update the shader or build the shader or whatever. So let's go ahead and press tab and search for AI image. Yeah, AI image. And And I'm just going to duplicate that guy by pressing Control D. So we need our two textures, and so I'm just going to, I gotta move this over, it's so annoying. So we go into here, and then we paste the texture name here, which I already got from copying and pasting it in a different window. So say okay, cool. Select that guy, paste this in, paste that, hit enter. It's so annoying too, you can't see the preview of what it is. Like everything in Arnold is just a missing icon or just a gray. I don't know what's up with that. That's terrible. Maybe the film industry is used to that, but I'm not used to that. Maybe I was spoiled working in games where you can actually see a preview of a texture. Okay, and so the way that you make a blend material or whatever, a layered material, is you create a layered material inside of Arnold. So same thing, I'm going to press tab, and what is it? AI layered shader. And the layer shader, it's kind of the same as what the definition would be in Maya. It takes inputs that have the different layers, and each one of those layers can be a different material. And I'm just going to make this full screen for a bit because it's going to be impossible to see this on the video. Okay, so for our layer shader, let's say layer 1. I'm pretty sure, we're going to find out in a second, but I'm pretty sure this is the absolute worst design, visual design for how this thing works. Maya got it wrong. They do their layer share horizontally, which is terrible. These guys got it so wrong. They do it vertically, but it's inverted. So layer 1, I think, is at the bottom, but they put layer 2 below it. Yes, that's right. Photoshop got it right, people. Why are we trying to do anything different? Bottom layer is rendered at the bottom. Top layer is rendered at the top, not top layer is rendered at the bottom. So confusing. So if you think about the number instead of the visual, it'll make more sense. Like 1 is actually down here. 2 is actually above it. So confusing. So layer 1 will just be our basic tiling texture. So first we need to create a standard surface. So tab, standard surface, blah, 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 whatever. And then in the out color, we can just delete that connection because it's going to get plugged into this guy here. And so what image is actually in here? Okay, that's the mossy one, so that's the wrong one. So the base image is going to be the first one. So I'm going to take the out color of this guy and plug it into the base color. So basically we will have the not mossy texture being the base, and then let's move this over. I will take the out color of this, and you want to click on this guy. See there how there's no like input or whatever? It's kind of weird. You have to click that guy so it shows up here, and then you middle mouse drag, hold middle mouse and drag this into the input, which is a standard Maya workflow. It's just weird that they don't have the pins there. So you say okay, and then it reveals itself. It adds the input. Another terrible design. All right, cool. So actually, let's just take a look at that. So I'll just move that off the screen there. Select this guy and apply the AI layer shader. And there we go. Cool. Okay, so we got some like random tiling rock texture going on there. I'm just going to increase the light as well because it's like so dark. Okay, I'm just going to go into attribute editor for this. Whatever, just make this a bit brighter just so we can see what we're doing. 3. Sure, 3 looks good. And we will go back over to this and make it full screen. And let's create our second layer. So again, we can delete this surface shading group or whatever because the out color of this is going to go, oh, right. So select this guy, and then the out color of this is going to go into, whoops, I forgot to enable it. So click enable layer 2. Out color of this is going to go into the input. There we go. Connect that guy up. There's one texture. There's another texture plugged into it. And let's just have a look and see what's going on there. So that's the old part of the shader. So you can see it's like rendering the old thing. Let me just update. Yeah. So that's the top layer. So you can see the layer shader is pretty much working already. Let's just take a look back at the layer shader. And to test this, you can just do the mixing. So remember, layer 2 is on top, even though it looks like it's below. So I'm going to fade the top layer. And you can see over here, it's revealing what's below. And the reason it's not masking yet is because we have to do a little bit of hookup to just tell the vert color to mask in the other texture instead of just rendering the vert color shader. But you can see the layer shader is currently working. So this is a good way to test your work when you're debugging it. So what we need to do now is we need to get rid of this multiply because that's causing the vertex colors to render on top of this layer. Just going to delete that connection. Just move these guys out of the way for a second. Okay, and then we will put the out color of this guy into the base color, and that will give us the mossy texture on top there. And then I'm just going to click back on the layer shader. And so I think what we want to do is, let's just test this. Yeah, so the mix is what controls the transparency between the two layers. So layer 2 is on top, and if I mix that to 0, you see the texture underneath. So what we want to do is we want to hook up the vert colors to talk to the mix. Because we have vertex colors, you can do RGBA. In this case, we'll hook up the red vertex color to act as the mask. So wherever we paint red on the vert colors, it will show the moss, and wherever we don't paint red, it will show the underlying texture. Okay, so we already have the vert colors from before and the multiply node, and so now we just need to hook it up into the mix of this guy, mix 2, right? Because that controls the transparency. Yep. Okay, so again, the super weird thing about these Arnold shaders is you need to middlemost drag on top to reveal the nodes. I don't know why they don't show up by default. And then this one's even weirder because it's going to bring up the old school menu. Click this guy and then middlemost drag on top of this thing to do the mix thing. Layer 2, mix 1. Yep. And then it's going to bring up this ancient editor that I hate. I hate this thing. It looks like it's from the 1970s. So we want to do out color, R, because all we care about is red. And we want to do mix 2, I guess, right? Click it, close it. Okay, so the mix is hooked up and it looks like something weird is happening here. The moss is showing up everywhere, even though we've just plugged it in to be the red channel or whatever. And I think that's because I have white filled in all the other channels. So let's just do a test here. Just gonna move this thing out of the way a bit here and go back into mesh display, apply color, and then let's just flood fill the whole thing with black. Oops, I didn't have it selected. And then I believe I need to do the update full scene because I updated the vert colors. There we go. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, and so now I'm going to set this guy to red. And in theory now, wherever I select and I flood fill, that's weird. There we go. Okay, so I actually stopped the video to figure out what was going on there because the whole tool kind of becomes pretty useless if you can't paint and see what you're painting in real time. So the reason that this wasn't working is because I had deleted the history off of this asset. And I guess when the history is not there, it's not creating a special node that you need here, which is the color per vertex piece of history. And so on the other one, I had created the sphere and I didn't bother deleting the history, and then I applied the vert colors. So let me just show you what happens here. So mesh display, apply color, whatever. I'm going to go red and hit apply, and you'll see nothing happens. Also see over here, see nothing's going on there. But if we add a bit of history to this object, so let's go to mesh display. I'm just going to tear this off here. So I'm just going to reverse. So flip the normals one more time, flip them back. And now you'll see I've got some history here in the stack. Now watch what happens when I apply the red color now. Hit apply. Boom, it updates in real time. And that's because over here, see, I've got the poly color per vertex node in the history stack. So we don't need this guy. So we can actually just go into here and go delete node and that other flip normal, delete node. And so we've just got this left over. So if you don't have this, it won't update in real time. Okay, so I'm just going to flood fill with black here and then go back into mesh display, the paint vertex color tool options box, and I'll just do a reset of the tool. Okay, so we want to paint with red. And when you have this tool open, you can hold down B on the keyboard and then hold down left mouse and drag left or right to increase the brush size. All right, cool. And so now we can just paint. And as we paint, you can see updating in real time, I'm painting the mossy rock texture on top of the regular rock texture. So super cool. You can build your little blend shader in here and kind of do whatever you want. There we go. Maybe we should tile this rock texture a little bit. Let me just find out where the moss one was. I think it was this guy. Whoops. Oh, I have some weird setting turned on, don't I? Debug shading disabled. Sorry about that. That's actually a really helpful feature. We'll look at that in a different video. UV coordinates, 1 by 1. Let's go 2 by 2. Sure, we could even tile it more, whatever, 4 by 4. Cool. Okay, so close this guy down and just go back into the tool here. So I'm just going to flood it with black one more time and then choose red. So wherever we paint red vert color, it's going to mask in the second texture. And wherever we paint remove red vert color, it's going to show the underlying textures. So pretty neat. And then you can hook up another 2 or 3 textures, and instead of using red, you can use green, blue, and alpha, and just plug those into the shader how we did before from the other node. Plug them into the mix or whatever. And you can also erase by holding Control. So just erase some of that stuff there. Now, this mask actually looks okay here, but I think it's kind of tricking us because it's rock on rock with moss, so you can't really see the blending marks. But we're just doing a straight like linear blend or lerp between the texture and the vertex colors. So you can see it kind of gets like a fadey transparent look there, and that wouldn't work for like rust or grime or something like that on a different material, but out of the scope of this tutorial because like breaking up the edge mask is like a whole nother tutorial in itself. So super cool. We learned how to work with vert colors, render them, use them for something more useful, which is piping them into a vertex color mask, and a little bit of Arnold stuff all together. And here's that same material applied to a quad, so we can just maybe see it a little bit easier here. Don't forget when you create a new object that you need the poly per color vertex thing, and you also need to go into the attribute editor and turn on export vertex colors and make sure that the color set editor is named the same as what's in your shader graph. So paint some stuff. Yeah, pretty cool. Check this out. Sweet. Paint some moss, blah, 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 moss, 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 moss. And then erase some moss. Here, let's make the brush smaller. Erase, 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 erase. Some more moss. Thank you very much for watching this video. Without viewers like you, this channel would not exist. If you like this video and enjoy the channel, please support me by purchasing something from the online store. Each purchase goes towards creating more video content and keeps the channel ad-free. See you next time. Have a splendid day.